So Ken is one of the OGs from the Street Fighter series and has been around since the very beginning, since Street Fighter 1. He was portrayed as Ryu's counterpart, as they both trained in the same art, but Ken is seen as a little different from Ryu. In a way, it's kind of the opposite. While Ryu was very much the dedicated warrior, steadfast, one dimension, and had one focus in mind, Ken was very different. He was seen as the warrior who liked to have fun, liked to occasionally, party, do little wild things, be more charming and charismatic. Over the years, Ken and Ryu have been the staples of Street Fighter and have both traveled their own little path while also staying close to each other and trying to be strong fighters. Recently, though, Ken hasn't quite been the same, and I feel like he is due for some kind of change and reboot. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So before we get into it though, of course, this is Show You Ken, the channel where we discuss all things Capcom. So if you are a fan of Capcom content, please think about subscribing. It would mean quite a much to me. So let's get back into the video. As was stated before, Ken, which his full name is Ken Masters, was Ryu's best friend and really almost kind of brother, right? They kind of grew up together, trained together, raised together under the same roof. They know each other's moves, they know each other very well, and are very close. Ken was very much seen and portrayed as the cooler version of Ryu. You had Ryu, who was, as I stated earlier, very boring in comparison to other characters, as he didn't really have much character, didn't do much, no little quirks, and was solely focused on becoming a true martial artist. Ken was seen as the opposite, a guy who would like to fight but was also very carefree and would indulge in other activities, even when he had a girlfriend and liked things like fancy sports cars. So he was seen and portrayed as the cool version of Ryu, and a lot of people would flock to him. Ken was one of the most popular characters in Street Fighter and has definitely carried his own weight in the series. Now, Ken debuted in the very first Street Fighter game. He was just a palette swap of Ryu. You couldn't exactly play as him unless you were doing a versus match. Still, he participated in the tournament and he did not win because, as we know, Ryu reached the final and faced Sagat, where Ryu became the victor. After that, we then go to the Alpha series, where Ken is once again still training and fighting as he wants to get better than Ryu, and he also wants to find Akuma, the man who had killed their master. Ken, of course, runs into Ryu. He then snaps Ryu out of his little funk after Ryu felt bad from his fight with Sagat and battling with the Satsui no, and Ken was there to remind him, hey, don't worry, you think too much, just remember it's all about the fight. Ken then goes on, of course, to meet Eliza. Then they get together. Then we go to Street Fighter 2. In Street Fighter 2, Ken enters that tournament once again to fight Ryu. But also, it's reported he made a promise to Eliza and told her that he would not marry her unless he defeated Ryu. As we all know, at the end of Street Fighter 2, Ken does marry Eliza, so it's very implied that Ken indeed did defeat Ryu, as that was his promise to her. After Street Fighter 2, we get to the Street Fighter 3 series, where Ken has a son named Mel, and then essentially here we are. This has been Ken's story, and it's a great story, and I'm glad it's a little different, but I feel like Ken hasn't really moved on or progressed since then. Ken's kind of been in this weird little limbo phase where I feel there hasn't been any real character development to him, and I wish there was. Now, some could argue that, well, it's because he did it, he reached the top. You know, he's a great fighter, he's the US martial arts champion, he has married Eliza, he has a son, he is also running the Masters Foundation, so essentially there's no room for the character, right? There's nothing else to explore and delve into. But I don't know, I don't think that's quite the case. As I'm glad there are things for him to do, I think his overall personal development has been stalled. As you see, Ken is very much a fighter like Ryu. Yes, he sees the finer things in life, he also likes to do other things, but he is still nonetheless a fighter. He still wants to be strong, wants to be the best, and wants to be able to beat his partner Ryu. At least it seemed that way. And that's the whole point of this video and why I wanted to discuss this. You see, over the years, Ryu and Ken have been rivals, and you've felt that, of course, Ken, while he enjoys sparring and fighting Ryu, also wants to best him, right? As I stated earlier, Ken wants to be better than Ryu. At least that's how it was before. Now, not so much. You get the feeling that Ken just wants to hang with Ryu, right? as long as he can be around him, as long as he can fight with him. You don't feel like Ken really wants to be better than him. For me personally, I feel like Ken peaked in the Alpha series. The Alpha series was a perfect representation of his character and how he was this, bombastic, or not say bombastic, but, super cool, charming, aggressive fighter, but still also a fighter, right? He was very much Ryu, but just, I guess you could say, quote unquote, normal. He also, though, really cared about fighting. As you saw, Ken wanted to be the best, right? It wasn't just about settling for, I don't know, a draw with Ryu, which is what I feel they went ahead and did with the Alpha 3 ending. See, my problem with his story in Alpha 3 is that's when the plateauing I think started to begin. If his story in Alpha 3, Ken kind of loses focus and loses his reason to fight. He then is reminded, though, through his fights with Sakura and Karen, that he's able to fight with Ryu, right? Ryu being the pinnacle, I guess, of fighters and being the super strong guy, and also Ken's best friend. I guess Ken also felt like he was kind of being left behind. So being able to actually remind himself that, hey, I fight with this guy, this really strong guy, and I'm able to hold my own with him. That's good enough for me. I don't quite like that. I want Ken to continue to strive and want to be the number one fighter. I want to go back to when he viewed, yes, Ryu as his rival, but also just the guy he wanted to best. Now it's almost like when he meets Ryu and fights him, it's kind of just, hanging out, right? It's their way of just passing the time. And it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Ken should always want to be that number one fighter, that guy who wants it all. He wants the girl, wants the money, wants the cars, but he also wants to be the best. He wants to be the best at anything. And I also feel like if they were going to go this route where he's now focusing on other things like the Masters Foundation, I kind of wish they really showed us that and made it an effort to point that out. I mean, they've given us, glimpses and hints. We're in Street Fighter 4. You see him a lot of times in his, suit, in the movie anyways I'm talking about, not the game. But he's in his, little business suit. So you can see that he is focusing on that aspect in his life. But I wish they actually, said that in the story. That maybe he was actually losing interest in fighting and wanted to focus mainly on working on this, father's business. As we all know, his father is rich. Instead, we get the feeling that, okay, he is running the business, but he still wants to fight. But then at the same time, we see that he's not really engaged in any of these major plot lines, right? I mean, you take Ryu out of the story, Ken really has no place, right? You have Ryu, and we all know he is the main character, so naturally a lot of things do branch out from him. He started this whole thing, so naturally a lot of characters will interact with him. But still, nonetheless, you have Ryu, and he interacts with characters like Chun-Li. Well, not to that extent, but still, he interacts with characters like Chun-Li, Guile. We got Rose directly, Sakura, which in turn leads to things like Dan and Blanca. And because of the interaction with Rose, he leads to Bison. Of course, we know Bison wants to control Ryu. And then we have Ryu's interaction with Sagat. Then have his interaction with Akuma. My point is, we didn't even get to Ken. We already went to so many different characters, and we didn't even get to Ken. You could legit take Ken out of the story, and Ryu, it won't make much of a difference to Ryu. He'll still go on with his life as if, he's great, right? He'll still be the main vocal point, main thing. And I get it, a lot of that is in part due to he's the main character, but still, that to me shows a gaping problem with Ken, because we do, on the flip side, we go to Ken, and you take Ryu out the equation. Ken really has no place, right? I mean, yeah, he has a little bit of interaction with Sakura because of her ties with Ryu. He has a little bit of interaction with Karen because obviously she's rich and their families, I believe, are rivals. He then has, I guess you could say, interaction with Dan because Dan is also a copy of Ryu, and I guess seeing how Ken is the original copy, that's why they kind of fight each other. But that's really it. He doesn't deal with Rose, doesn't deal with Sagat, doesn't deal with Chun-Li, I guess, virtued by Ryu, or any other fighters. Nobody has a reason to seek out Ken. No one is trying to find Ken. And when you do have fighters who are seeking out or interacting with Ken, a lot of times it turns out to be, the lesser characters or the joke characters, right? the characters like Dan, or in Street Fighter EX, Alan Snyder. My point is, Ken really doesn't have any weight in Street Fighter. And it wasn't always like this. Or maybe it was, but it just didn't feel this bad, right? One of the things, like I mentioned before, I want him to go back to being strong and wanting to be one of the best fighters. And one of the things that always annoyed me was this issue with Sagat. Here you had Sagat, who was seen as the pinnacle of the martial arts, right? He is the king of Muay Thai, and for a while he was the king of fighters, which hence he was a champion of the Street Fighter 1 tournament. Ryu, as you clearly see, struggled immensely with Sagat. Immensely. It's kind of weird to me that Ken never wanted to go fight him. It never piqued Ken's interest to go pay Sagat a visit, say, hey, you know what? This guy was really tough. Like, you pretty much barely beat him. Let me give him a shot. Let me see what he's about. No. Didn't want to deal with it. Now, I mean, I guess you could say because he saw that Ryu defeated him, he figured, well, if Ryu beat him, I don't want to face him because that means I probably could beat him as well. But still, he obviously learned the truth later. He learned how the fight went and how Ryu succumbed to the Satsui no Hado. So, you figure that would still pique Ken's interest. You know, go to Street Fighter 3. Same thing happens. Street Fighter 3 tournament happens, and Ryu loses to Oro. Cool. What does Ken do? He drops out of the tournament. And that just bothers me. Like, wouldn't you want to face the person who defeated Ryu? Your arch rival? Not arch rival, but your rival? The person that you're constantly fighting? The person that you're measuring yourself against? Like, if he's your picture or measure of strength, wouldn't you want to take out the person who then beat Ryu? Because then that would prove that you are better than Ryu. But instead, he just drops out the tournament. And this is my main problem with Ken. He's very much come across now as the sidekick. He is now Ryu's partner. I just go where Ryu goes. I do what Ryu does. I enter the tournaments Ryu enters. I just want to fight with Ryu. If Ryu has no business here, I have no business here. And that bothers me. That bothers me because there's a lot of material there with Ken. There's a lot you can do. A big thing I couldn't stand was in Street Fighter V, they didn't really flesh out Ken's reason for being there. Once again, you could have taken him out of the story and it wouldn't have affected anything. He was just there for moral support, to back Ryu up, to be his sidekick. Instead, that would have been a great opportunity to show how Ken ran into Sean. Now I know in the story mode, yes, he did technically run into Sean, but I mean really delve into it, right? You could really have him cross paths with Laura. They really talk and engage, and she kind of passes on about her brother is into him, right? The whole point of Ken's purpose in 5 is could have been him looking for a student. He's looking to pass on his skills, so he enters this tournament or travels the world trying to find a student. He then comes in cross contact with Laura, and Laura tells him of the interest from her brother, because her brother is into martial arts and then into Ken, and then Ken can interact with Sean more, and then boom, it lays the groundwork for Street Fighter 3 where Ken does accept Sean as a student. Instead, we didn't get that. All we got is Goo, 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 which just seems like Ken's saying that 24/7. Anytime now I see Ken, whether it's in the games, whether it's in a movie, an anime show, a mobile game, whatever the case it is, Ken is just there to back Ryu up. He's always yelling Ryu's name, helping Ryu overcome the Satsui no Hado, helping Ryu get out of his funk, fighting with Ryu. It's just Ryu, Ryu, Ryu. You take Ryu out and Ken completely collapses. Completely. I mean, look at Sakura. Sakura, who is into Ryu. Ryu is her goal, right? That's who she wants to be like. She wants to train under him, and now, according to 5, wants to be with him. But even if you take Ryu out of Sakura's story, her story still continues. Her trying to be a fighter, now deciding if whether she wants to go down the path of being a great fighter or end up, getting a regular job and being a regular worker. Her interactions with Dan, her interactions with Blanca, her interactions with Cameron, her interactions even with, you could say, Chun-Li if you go to the manga. My point is, Sakura has more, right? She feels more fleshed out than Ken. And I just wonder if, Capcom kind of rushed Ken's story. I wondered if him getting married right away and having a kid so soon ended his story prematurely. I think if they could redo things, or if I were in charge, I would kind of hold off on the marriage, right? You can say that maybe during the Alpha series he meets Eliza, and then Street Fighter 2 they're dating, right? And then by Street Fighter 3 is when they're taking that next step of, hey, you know what? Let's be married, live together. And then you can even say at the end of 3 or the start of 4 is when, or start of 4 they have it pregnant. But you can say at the end of 3, because I forgot 3 is after 4. I know, it's very confusing. But you can say at the end of 3, hey, that's when, you know what, she gets pregnant and then Mel's about to come out, right? And this whole time, Ken is still focusing on his need to be a fighter. And again, if you want to show that he's, pretty much like Sakura, where he's at a crossroads, deciding whether to be a fighter or work on his foundation, work at the Masters, you can then show that. Make that a story arc. Make that one of the games he's legit conflicted and doesn't know. But instead, they don't. We get the impression he still wants to be a fighter, but his goal just seems to just be Ryu. Anything outside of that, doesn't want to deal with it. I mean, he needs advice on being a father. He wants to go to Ryu, which is funny because this man has zero experience with being a father. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I want Ken to be better, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so happy with Street Fighter 6 and the direction they're taking with the characters and what it looks like they're doing with Ken. Now, we don't know. For all we know, this could just be a new look for Ken, and he's just same old Ken, and nothing changes. But from what we're seeing, especially with his look and from those leaks, which I kind of hope are true, it seems like they're trying to finally do something with Ken, right? Add variety, add flavor, add dimensions to his character. He's at it perfect and easy his whole life. It'd be great now to kind of, introduce a little bit of conflict, whether that's marriage problems with his wife, problems with his son, or maybe even problems in the family, maybe a death in the family. I don't know. It could be anything. But I just want them to kind of introduce some sort of hardship to Ken to remind us that, no, he is great. He's more than just a Ryu clone. He's more than just a Ryu sidekick. He's his very own character. So that was my little rant on Ken. I probably could keep going, but tell me what you guys think in the comments section down below. Do you agree and think that Ken needs a little revamp or a little bit of spice to his character? Something to make him stand out a little more, something to get him off of this Ryu obsession? Or maybe am I going crazy, right? Maybe it's just me. Maybe Ken is fine. Maybe there doesn't need to be anything to be done with him. And this is just his character. This is who he is. He's just the forever point backup man to Ryu. Maybe he had his Vegeta moment where he finally realized, you know what, Ryu, you are better than me, so I'm going to stop competing with you. I don't know. But again, I'm always interested in what you guys have to say, so let me know in the comment sections down below. And as I said before, if you guys love Capcom content, please think about subscribing, as I would appreciate it. And with that said, I want y'all to take care.